Hey, welcome to my channel. I'm Brother Bob, and today we're going to be discussing Hogan's Heroes. Now, I hope the people in copyright will let me get by with my little end around. When I used an actual recording of the theme song, I chopped it up into pieces, and it's only there because to me to do something about Hogan's Heroes without that music is just sacrilegious. I'm sorry. This is the way I operate. So hopefully the copyright people can get by at the beginning. And it's a marketing idea in the sense that once you got that song in your head, you might just go to the people who own the rights to Hogan's Heroes and watch it someplace on like YouTube or somewhere it's on the internet and one of those many apps. And they might get a peek in views, at least 50, because, hey. Oh, let's cut that out so you can see it anyways. Well, Hogan's Heroes, the movies. Yes, now, I grew up, Hogan's Heroes was a TV show on the air when I was young, and watching it as a regular TV show, I thought it really happened. I figured there was, Starlog 13 was a real place, and they really did have, the underground working out of it, and the Germans weren't quite as bad as they were portrayed on the TV show, but they were still survivors from the camp alive and well at the time, and they didn't want to portray the camp as it actually was, so they made it a slapstick comedy. But I figured, they was based on a true story. Well, research turns out, nope, that didn't happen. Basically, it was a parody of The Great Escape, which was a movie about a real Starlog, number 3. See the parody of it? 13, unlucky number, yet they have the fortunate, unescapable, unlucky number 13 has no escapes. Okay, it's a joke, I get it now. But nope, never happened, never was, which is really cool because it makes my story easier. See, Starlog 13 was a real place. It really happened. And we can make it more of a dramatic movie, but a real hardcore war movie. And it's got some background that I cannot create. I was going to try, do the research and see if I can coordinate my fictitious story with the real location of Starlog 13, but there wasn't one.
Okay, so since there is no Starlog 13, I get to make it my own, go along with my own story. Let's pick a fine location. Now, because the Germans were well aware of the fact that eventually the U.S. is going to be entering the war, they built a special Starlog way up in the mountains, in the cold. The reason for that, number one, is because doing research, I discovered that it was always winter there, so there'd always be continuity. Like if the show was in syndication and people watched it out of sequence, it's not going to be spring one show and summer the next, and then fall. No, it's always winter. Well, easiest way to work with my story and that fact is to put it up in the mountains. They put it up in the mountains specifically for the southern U.S. soldiers that would be captured. They would, be used to a nice warm temperature and never seen snow in their life, and now they're living in a place where there's always snow. Very uncomfortable for prisoners. And for the people in the north who were used to the cold weather, they call it Starlog 13, just a psychiatric, influence on them, I guess you'd say, because some people are paranoid. Okay. So we got unlucky 13 up in the cold, miserable camp. Now, before that, long time ago, 1700s, 1800s, I really don't know. Hopefully, the people who actually write this movie or script will do a little bit of research, but there needs to be a mine. It can't be a gold or silver mine because that will attract a lot of people. But something useful like coal and iron and zinc will ever be good in this area of Germany. Like there's already nickel mines up there. Great, it's one of them. But it was a long time ago.
10. We'll go with 10 because 10 would be good. Works in with backstory with its regular series. See, a couple of people find a mine of tin and decide it would be more profitable to smelt it, and fabricate tin items at the mine location instead of, selling it wholesale to go to somebody else wholesale that, ends up somebody retail. And it's like, well, we can make more money if we just do it ourselves, mine to end product. Okay, so we're back to work. Okay, now, naturally, a small town. What we're going to call it? Düsseldorf, because it was in the show. Great, we'll use that one. And it was a small mining factory town, which kind of sprung up, and they did pretty good. Eventually, they get a rail line, but they still had the water route, which, after the mine played out, and Sharkey Toy Company, oh yeah, let's bring it out, they have a tin mine, they produce things, they get the Sharkey Toy Company. And yeah, once the mine played out, Sharkey Toy Company was big enough that they could still buy tin wholesale and still make a profit because they got a lot of capital, and the businessman basically running the town, but it's a completely capitalistic village. And everybody's making money, and everybody's happy, and everybody's doing pretty good too. And then, well, wouldn't you know, the socialists want to take over. The Nazis, the socialists, everything is owned by the state, and everybody works for the state, and everybody gets paid the same. And well, naturally, these people didn't want that any more than the South wanted to lose their slaves, because it's just going to be an economic disaster as far as the plantation owners are concerned. Well, so they started the resistance, and well, they worked out of the old abandoned mine. So that way, if the Nazis were even looking for resistant members from another cell, they ship them over to the little old town of Düsseldorf, and they can, hide in mine whenever any Nazis are coming around looking for resistance fighters back. Then the businessmen learned that the Germans are looking to build this remote, very cold, isolated Stalag for Americans that are going to be captured once America joins the war. So, hey, they persuade them into building the Stalag over their lines. Then they can even hide people in the German war camp, which works well. So that's where Stalag 13 is built. All the tunnels and stuff that incorporates a large network of underground resistance and storage in factories, but they were there before. Okay, it's just the tunnels were pre-existing, the camp was conveniently put on top of them, and that's how we have the camp. Alright, I think I'm done now. So next is the Germans themselves. A little footnote here. The Germans were made to be buffoons because every actor that played a German, Hofstadter, Plank, Burkhalter, they were all Jews. I think there were other ones too, but I know those big ones were, and they just did not want to portray the Germans as a proud and competent people. But this is a war movie, and they're more realistic, but they're also human. Colonel Plank was a very honored, decorated soldier in World War I. He even was a prisoner of war and helped organize an escape of multiple men, which got him more decorations. So the Second World War comes around, and they need someone to be in charge of this new Stalag they're making, so he gets a job. It's more of an honorary position. Like, it was a position to honor a decorated war hero who did not need to do any more for the fatherland. He had served enough in the previous war, but they needed people to run camps, and so basically it was just a position of respect more than an actual job, which is quite alright with Plank, because you see, he'd much rather spend time at beer hall with wine, women, and song, right? Wasn't that the World War II version of sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Okay. And he did have a Stalag with no escapes, but because he was a war prisoner, he made sure they were in a cold area, they had plenty of firewood. He also made sure they had good foods and occasional banquets and nice recreational things. And the prisoners really didn't want to escape, because it was more like a stay at summer camp, which of course gave him problems from the Gestapo and the upper brass, because he's really supposed to be more hardcore, and he's trying to, and he's also easily persuaded through the mind games that Hogan plays. It's like Colonel Klink, but a little bit different. Which brings us to Sergeant Schulz. Schulz's grandfather married a blonde-haired, blue-eyed German woman. And of course, she converted to Judaism because this was like before all that stuff happened. And then Schulz's father was born, and he too also married a blue-eyed, blonde-haired girl, German. And they had a blue-eyed, blonde-haired Jewish boy that looked German. Well, his father was also a businessman that owned Schulz Toy Company, which was either granddad's or great-granddad's or great-great-granddad's. That was back there when the mine was first discovered, and discovered it would be easier to manufacture the tin products on site instead of, involving all those middlemen. The state has taken over private enterprises, and well, like for example, Schulz toy factories don't need to be making toys and tin products in the world, and during the war. So it's now making ball bearings or something to that effect. And Schulz's position is that if the Germans win, if he's lucky, he'll get to manage the factory when it gets converted back to whatever the state feels like it should be. If the Americans win, however, he might get this factory back into his family. So he really is in the middle of all this. Yes, he's German blood from his mother's side of the family. His father's too, but hey, he's German blood, so he wants to be a good German, but he also would like to be a private businessman. And so he, doesn't know anything, because if he knew things, if he heard things, if he sees things, he, as a good German, is going to have to investigate. So, he knows nothing, he hears nothing, he sees nothing. I even think of an interesting scene where, kind of veiled, we're letting Hogan know that I know what's going on, and if you make it too obvious, I'm going to have to do something. So, I don't want to see anything. Basically, that's the way he is going. And that pretty much covers the most important Germans. Now we come to the actors, all in general, because you see, instead of having subtitles, what you do is you have actors that can talk with a German accent. So, when they're talking in German, they sound like what you'd expect a German to sound like. But when they're talking in English, they sound like they're English people, or Americans, or Southerners, or, Canadians, or Australians. Because you see, a lot of the Germans, especially the Gods, they learn English from listening to the prisoners talk and having the prisoners try to teach them a little bit of, I'll teach you a little German, you teach me a little English type of deals. But the funny thing is they have things that are messed up. So a German who learns something from the South would use the English American expression, you talking to me, but instead of doing it with a Bronx accent, he'd do it with a Southern accent. Y'all talking to me? And the same thing, we have a Bronx person doing a Bronx accent. Hey, I'm lower than a snake's belly in a wagon rut. So they get their metaphors kind of mixed up with the accents, which would be funny. But still, the problem with that would be LeBeau, because LeBeau has a French accent because he's a Frenchman. So you'd have to have someone that can speak a really deep French accent, almost unaudible. It's so thick when he's talking French, but when he's talking English, he has a typical LeBeau accent. If the Germans are talking German and the English-speaking people are listening, they can't hear it, they can't understand it, but you can because you're watching the movie and there's no need for subtitles. And now we come to the Americans. We're going to start off with Colonel William Robert Hogan, who happens to be the twin brother of Colonel Robert. William Hogan, who is a very distinguished pilot, very honorable military man, very important. And when he gets shot down, the government would much rather have him not in a prison camp. So they go to their brig. William Robert Hogan, his twin brother, is being held. Hey, guess what? We got a job for you. All your crimes will be expunged, no court martial. All you got to do is take your brother's place, who just happens to be at Starlot 13, which is located on top of the old tin mine. Okay, you see where this is going? The Germans put the highest ranking American prisoner in the camp specially made for American prisoners. And although the underground resistance has not made a tunnel into the camp, it's not going to be that hard to do. Colonel William Hogan is set up to take Robert Hogan's place in the POW camp, and that's how the whole thing is enlightened to the prisoners, is because all of a sudden there's a bunch of thumping underneath the floor, and a drill comes up and a saw comes up. Yeah, hi. And that's when they make the exchange. William Robert Hogan, or the Colonel is now in the show, he's an old con man. He's a hack. He's living the gold brick life, which is why he's in jail in the first place. And, well, the thing that's interesting now brings us to Newkirk. Because you see, Newkirk, the English RAF pilot that's in the prison with them, he's a Texas boy. The con man that used to hang out with William Robert Hogan, or Colonel Hogan, in his younger years. They pulled plenty of scams together, which also makes the guy that plays Newkirk has to have a whole bunch of accents because, yeah, he is the guy they're always putting in disguise, and he can do German, and he can do French, and he can do Irish, and he can do anything because, well, voice actors that they're going to have to get to play Newkirk.
Okay, so how did a Texas boy, Newkirk, end up in the RAF? Well, he was growing up in Texas and became a pilot doing crop dusting and other things in that area because Texas is big and it does help to know how to fly a plane. He did some sort of scam in Texas that, you know, kind of made him be wanted, so he just let things cool off by taking a trip over to England, and he was just playing a little bit of a scam where he was a RAF pilot on furlough, even if it was just to impress the ladies. Well, the Germans were coming, and they had to, and the military had to gather up all available pilots to build the planes, and not being familiar with the equipment and or terrain, he landed on the wrong side of the channel and ended up being captured. And that's how Newkirk, a Texas boy, is in a German prison camp thinking that he's an RAF pilot. And he just likes continuing the scam. But there's also the background for the human part of the story because Hogan and Newkirk are a bunch of con artists from way back. And guys had old times together in their youth and they know how to pull a good scam. And they got the Jim West Autonomous Gordon thing going down, plus the talents of the Mission Impossible type gang that's also in the Starlog, which would make it, you know, very good plots. This could be a franchise, but there's a whole bunch of them. 3, 6, maybe even 9.
Okay. And now we're going to Turk. Yeah, okay. And now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the resistance and the Gestapo.
Foster. See, the businessmen in the businessman in the town of Dusseldorf, one of them owns a warehouse, and he also owned the land that was the mine entrance. So he built his warehouse up against the end of the hill. You know, he had a warehouse, and he extended it up to the back, he extended it back up to where the mine came out. And they have in there a secret room behind a false wall that leads into a secret storage room that, if ever discovered, you know, the warehouse owner will explain that, oh yeah, this is where I keep the overflow. So if somebody was to break in and steal all my stock, I'd still be able to open up a business in the morning because I have this hidden storeroom, which also in the back has a wall that also leads into a safe, which, if discovered, the warehouse owner would say, yeah, I mean, this is where I keep valuable gold, silver, diamonds, rubies, all that very expensive stuff is hidden in the safe, which also has a fake back wall that leads into the tunnel that leads all the way to where Starlog 13 is. Now, therefore, the Gestapo knows about resistance. Obviously, there's been resistance for some while against the war, and they try to break up these cells, but they keep losing track of people when they get to Dusseldorf. Somehow, they get followed into Dusseldorf, and then they just disappear. Hostetter, he is trying to figure out what's going on, and he's kind of putting it together, but he can't quite do it because Schulz doesn't know anything, so he can't help him. See? Now, what else can I think of? I think that's pretty much all of it, so we could be going. As you can see, I've been experimenting. I mean, yes, I have a new setup, which I introduced in, welcoming the new members who didn't bother to watch it, 2 views, so it's okay. But yeah, I got a new setup here. I'm trying out the different arrangements, trying to see what works the best. And
Okay. Talk to you later. Bye.
Over.